Hey, everybody, we are back with the In Between the Lines podcast. I'm Jake, running solo today. Jeff, unfortunately, is working and traveling this week, so we just weren't able to get together, but he is here in spirit, and hopefully he will be back next week because we got a lot to talk about. You know, Jeff loves his football. We're in the midst of wild card weekend. College football playoffs are up and running. This past weekend, we finally had some really good playoff games. So the championship is set. We have Ohio State versus Notre Dame. God, I think that's going to be a good matchup. It's one of those things, though, as a Michigan fan, it's like one of those worst case scenarios. I mean, it's like asking, would you rather get punched in the face or kicked in the face? I mean, they both suck as far as I'm concerned. So either one of these teams winning sucks to me. But I guess if I was going to root for a team, I'm going to probably root for Ohio State to lose. I'm not going to say I'm rooting for Notre Dame to win. I'm rooting for Ohio State to lose. I really wish there was a way that they could just both lose, but that's neither here or there. But let's, since Jeff isn't here this week, let's kind of get into something else that I've been really thinking about lately. And that's what a good time it is to be a fan of sports in Michigan right now. You know, we got the Detroit Tigers, who started the season off pretty slow, but then the second half of the season had one of the greatest runs in baseball history to come in and then make the playoffs and then actually win a series. And it looked like they even had a chance to go to the World Series. I mean, that's amazing. And I can tell you that the city of Detroit just buzzes when the Tigers are doing well. I mean, I remember 10, 15 years ago when we had those good teams, they were everywhere. And so what's crazy about that is I went to a Tigers game earlier this season with my buddy Lance. It was when we went up to the draft in Detroit, the NFL draft in Detroit. That second day, we went to a Tigers game. And they lost, and I remember when I was watching them, I didn't recognize hardly any of the names on that team. So it's not like they went and made some big trade at the deadline or anything like that. They just started playing ball, were coached well, and played gritty. And I mean, it was fun to watch. And then we got the Detroit Lions right now, best record in football. 15-2, number one seed, secured the bye. Right now, they're the betting favorites to win the Super Bowl. I mean, this is just crazy stuff. I actually got to go to the Detroit Lions game this past weekend against the Minnesota Vikings. Took my boys to that game. It was a Christmas gift. Amy got it for us for Christmas, and I remember when I opened it, I was like, oh, I didn't even know about it. Just me and the boys. The boys have never been to a Lions game, so they were stoked. And I remember at that time when we got the tickets, they were the number one seed at that time, and that next weekend it was Green Bay and Minnesota were playing, and if Green Bay beat Minnesota, it really didn't matter what happened that next week. We would have secured the number one seed then. And so I remember telling the boys, this could either be a playoff atmosphere game, or this can be a game where none of the starters are playing because it doesn't matter. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, at the time I was rooting for Green Bay to beat Minnesota. I wanted to secure that number one seed as soon as possible because it was such an impact if you lost that game or if you didn't get the number one seed. You were either number one with a first round bye, home field playoffs throughout, to being number 5, no bye, and not even a home game at all. So it huge impact. So I was wanting it to happen that week, but when it didn't happen, I knew it was going to be a playoff atmosphere game. I knew it was going to be buzzing, and I just, after looking back at it, it was a Sunday night game. Me and the boys got there probably about 6:30. That city was bumping. That city, the energy was in the city. When you got into the stadium, I mean, I took a video of it that you just kind of panned around. And when I watched that video, it does not capture the energy that was there. It was wild, and it was nonstop wild. And it was a crazy game because, the Lions defense has been so depleted, and we've given up a lot of points over the last couple weeks. And I really thought that if we won this game, it was going to be like a 41-37 or a 45-41 type of ball game. For our defense to have stepped up the way that they did is just absolutely amazing. It was wild. I mean, it's not like Minnesota didn't have opportunities. They were inside the 10, inside the 20 numerous times, but never were able to get a touchdown. So, I mean, hats off to that defense. But yes, the energy was just amazing. And quite frankly, I kind of feel like my boys are a little bit spoiled right now that that's their first game ever, because it's going to be hard to match the intensity and the energy that was at that game. It was just wild. But it was a great experience because both boys loved it. They were grinning ear to ear from the beginning all the way to the end, the whole ride home. We didn't get home till like 1:40 in the morning that next day, when I had to work and the boys had school, but worth every second of it. It was so amazing. And, one of the coolest things was, like I said, the energy that was there. I mean, every third down play, every fourth down play, the place was crazy. But like, I'm even thinking like pregame, when Alex Anzalone first walked out of the tunnel, the place went crazy. I mean, where it was like, oh my God, this is hurting my ears how loud they were. But the most intense moment, I think it was, I don't know if it was in the end of the third quarter, if it was in the fourth quarter, early fourth quarter, still a competitive game at that time. I think it was a third or fourth down play, and all of a sudden they showed Aiden Hutchinson on the sideline. And that's the first time he's been actually on the sideline since he'd injured himself. So once they showed him on the sideline, the place went crazy. But then it kind of showed him where he recognized that he was on the big screen. And then he started raising his hands up and pumping people up, so it got even louder. And then you saw him mouth, "Let's fucking go." Place erupted. And then they got the stop. So, like I said, what an awesome game. What a huge win. Like I said, secured the number 1 seed. First time the Lions have ever done that. Get the bye week, which is so important with all the injuries we have. And then now I think we'll get to play the winner of Minnesota and the Rams, both teams that we've already played. But, I was reading something the other day. They're talking about the coach of the year, who's going to be the coach of the year. And they're talking about the coach from Minnesota. And I get that. I mean, I don't think anybody expected Minnesota to have the season that they have, except Jeff. I remember Jeff in the beginning of the year said that he thought they were going to be good. But I doubt that he would have said that they won 14 games. I'll have to ask him next week if that's what he thought. But so I get that they kind of came out of nowhere, one of the best teams, had a chance to be the number 1 seed. But I mean, how do you argue against Dan Campbell right now? I mean, yes, I get it. They were a number 2 seed last year, I think it was. So they had high expectations. They've been favorites or up near the top of the list to win the Super Bowl all year. But a couple things. One, when there's expectations like that, for one, those are always hard to meet. I mean, you have a target on your back. Everybody is gunning for you. So one, just because you were the favorite to do that doesn't take away from you doing it. But the more important aspect is they had 22 players on injured reserve. 22 players. That's more than the other 3 teams in our division had combined. And not just not backup players or mediocre players. I mean, we're talking we lost our 2 defensive ends, Aiden Hutchinson, who was at the time on pace to be Defensive Player of the Year at the time. I think if the voting would have happened week 5, he was Defensive Player of the Year. Hell, he still received an All-Pro vote, and he only played 5 games. They lost the other defensive end, Davenport. They lost Derek Barnes. They've lost Malcolm Rodriguez. They lost Anzalone, missed several games. Carlton Davis. I mean, the list of players that they've lost. Aleem McNeil. Just for them to still lose all those players on defense and still win 15 games and get the number 1 seed. To me, I mean, and I guess I'm a biased person saying that because I'm a Lions fan, but how do you not give it to him for that? Like I said, to me, that's an easy decision. And God, I was just looking at their schedule next year. They didn't do the Lions any favors next year. I mean, it's one of those, I sure hope we win it this year because the schedule that they put out for them next year is brutal. I want to say 11 of their games are against teams that made the playoffs this year. But just looking at their road schedule, I mean, they obviously have Chicago, Green Bay, and Minnesota on the road always, but then they have Baltimore, the Rams, Philadelphia, Washington, Cincinnati, and Kansas City, all on the road. That is insane. Absolutely insane. So you never know what kind of season they'll have next year, but I tell you what, in Holmes and in Campbell, I trust. So, but yeah, I'll be rooting for him. I'll be rooting for him definitely. It's kind of weird not getting to see him play this week, but hey, you know, I love it. Hopefully some of those injuries heal up and we can be a little closer to full strength. But God, how crazy would it be for the Lions to go to the Super Bowl, and how crazy would it be for them to win the Super Bowl? Like I said, as I was saying, what a great time to be a sports fan in Michigan because, I mean, Michigan loves their sports. And they're the only major team in Michigan that hasn't won the whole thing. You know, the Tigers have won World Series. The Pistons have won the NBA championship. The Red Wings have won numerous Stanley Cup championships. You've got the Wolverines who've won college championships, and you got the Michigan State Spartans that have won basketball championships. I mean, Michigan basketball has won basketball championships. It's just that's the lone team that hasn't won it all. And God, it would be amazing, absolutely amazing to see that happen. And then going back to the Michigan Wolverines, like I said, yeah, you know, they had kind of a down year, but when you still look at it at the time being, they're still right now, they're the defending national champions. I mean, I know that's going to change next week, but they won the national championship last year. So they're the defending national champions, had a down year, still beat their rivals, you know, still beat Michigan State, still beat Ohio State, beat Alabama in the bowl game. So they finished the season strong, got the number 1 recruit in the whole nation, Bryce Underwood, which was a huge get. They've been very successful in the transfer portal so far. So they're still an exciting team. It's still exciting to be a fan of them. You're really happy and anxious to look forward to see what they're going to put together. Then you got Michigan basketball right now. Michigan basketball is playing great basketball. They're ranked. They've beaten numerous ranked teams. Just had a great West Coast trip where they went out and they beat USC on the road and beat UCLA, who was ranked, destroyed them. So it's never easy to travel out to the West Coast and get wins, and to get both wins and one against a ranked team. They're playing great ball right now. And it's just great to see because last year, the year before that was kind of a disappointment. You know, I remember when they hired Juwan Howard, I was excited about it. Like I said, I'm a Fab Five guy. I love Juwan Howard. And he had some success that first year, but then since then, you know, everything's kind of dropped and fallen down. And, you know, to me, when I watched his teams, they kind of went from Beeline, who played really, really good team ball, really good scheme, and he he did a good job of developing players that weren't the 4 and 5 star players. Whereas Juwan Howard was getting those 4 and 5 star players, but then they didn't really seem like they were playing up to their potential. I mean, to me, it looked like, which I know that he was, to me, it looked like an AAU team out there. And there's a huge difference between AAU ball and college basketball and high school basketball and things like that. And to me, that's what it looked like. It looked like those players, the Jet and Jace Howard, they looked like they were all out for themselves. How many can I score? I liked Cody Buffkin, but I mean, when you look at a team that had 2 first-round draft picks and Howard and Buffkin, and then also had Hunter Dickinson on the team, who is a consensus All-American every year that he's played, to not make the NCAA tournament, I mean, to me, that's coaching. And so, like I said, loved Juwan Howard, but when it was time for him to go, it was time for him to go. Like I said, I don't hold any ill wills towards the guy. Like I said, I always think of Juwan Howard, Fab Five Juwan Howard. And so, like I said, big fan of him, but I'm happy that he's not the coach anymore. And then I was very excited when they hired Dusty May. Like I said, Dusty May had a good coaching resume, brought over some good players, and now they're playing good basketball again. Reminds me of when Beeline was there again. And when Beeline was there, that was a fun basketball team to watch. They were always exciting. They played good basketball, and that's kind of what I feel like is going on right now. And I think if I remember reading correctly, Beeline had some role in getting Dusty May to come over there, and I hope Dusty May is there for the long haul because I like his style. I like how he coaches. I like what he's doing with the program. They're fun to watch. I actually get to go tomorrow, going to the Michigan game against Washington, taking the boys to that. So I'm excited. Like I said, right now they're number 1 in the Big Ten, and they're playing some really good basketball. So excited about that. Then we got the Detroit Pistons. Holy cow. What the Detroit Pistons are doing right now is absolutely amazing. I mean, right now they're 18 and 18, so 500, which, that doesn't sound fantastic until you start thinking about a couple things. One of those things is right now they're on a hot streak. I think they've won 7 out of the last 10, 8 out of the last 10, something like that, and against some good teams. I do my little Piston recap, 10-game recaps, and I think they went 4-10 in their first 10, 4-10 in their second 10. Then they got I think they went 5-5 in that last 10. But then now they're really starting to play good ball. But like I said, just to take this back again, Detroit Pistons won 14 games all season last year. So the fact that we're still in early January and they have 18 wins and they're 500 right now is absolutely amazing. Through 36 games last year, the Detroit Pistons were 3-33. 3-33. That's wild that they're 18 and 18 right now. Now, I was looking at their upcoming schedule. I mean, they've got Toronto today. Hopefully, they win that game. But then they've got a tough stretch. They've got the Knicks, they've got the Pacers, they've got Orlando, some other pretty high up teams. Cleveland's in there, so they've got a tough road to go. But like I said, I had said at the beginning of the year, I think the over under for them was 24, 25, something like that, and I took the over. I thought that they could win. I thought that they could win 30 games this year. But the Pistons are fun to watch. Like I said, and Cade Cunningham, he's finally stepped up. I mean, I've been excited about him. He had the injury issue in those first 2 seasons, but I thought that he stepped up and was kind of exciting last year. Still learning the game. The turnovers were an issue, but this year he's really stepped his game up. At the beginning of the year, the turnovers were still an issue, but he's dropped that down. I think he was averaging about 5 or 6 earlier in the season, and I think he's got that down to in the 3 range. So I think he's an all-star. Like I said, and I don't think I'm the only person that thinks that. I think there's a lot of people that think that. When I was looking, I've been voting every day. When I was looking at that, they've got him like 6th or 7th in fan votes for the guards in the East. But like I said, so he's not going to get in there as a starter. But I think the other teams and the other players are recognizing his level, and if he's not an all-star this year, that's really does him injustice. He's playing well. So like I said, he's been fun to watch. I like what they're doing there. Now, of course, since they are actually 18-18 right now, and I think in the last rankings, they're either the 7th or 8th seed. They've kind of been floating in between that 7th and 10th seed for the last couple weeks. So, I mean, legitimate shot to make the playoffs. So, of course, everybody's talking about trades, and who can the Pistons get to help them get over that hump. And you know, I'm having mixed feelings on it. I've seen a couple different things thrown out there because they're one of the teams that has a lot of salary cap to play with. I mean, I've heard Brandon Ingram, I've heard Zach LaVine, I've heard CJ McCollum, I heard Jimmy Butler at one point, but I don't think that's a realistic option. But the only issue that I'm having with some of these is that they all almost include, the proposals anyway, they almost all always include Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., I've seen Malik Beasley thrown in there, Isaiah Stewart. I like all those guys. I mean, I think those guys are part of the grit and what's making us play well. So it's one of those, there's none of those guys that they're talking about that really jumps out at me. You know, with Jaden Ivey going down for the season, that hurts. And I guess I would love to see us get somebody else to step in that role. But God, I don't want to lose Tobias Harris. I don't want to lose Tim Hardaway Jr. Don't want to lose Malik Beasley. Love Malik Beasley. I really like Isaiah Stewart, but I guess if we had to sacrifice him to get somebody else that can help, I can kind of roll with that. I mean, I know Trajan Langdon has said that, you know, picks have to be attached, but it's funny because some of those proposals are having the Pistons throw in picks too, and I just don't think that's going to happen. But I mean, I like this core of what we have. You know, I was a little disappointed earlier in the season with Jalen Duren, but he's starting to play well again. Like I said, the Jaden Ivey thing hurt. I like Jaden Ivey a lot. He brings a lot of energy to the team. So him leaving, or not leaving, but him getting injured for the season really hurt. I thought him and Cade were really starting to form some chemistry. I think those two have the potential to be one of the best backcourts in the NBA. They're certainly one of the best young backcourts in the NBA. So that hurt. But like I said, you know, teams need role players. I think everybody gets too caught up in that needing stars. And it's worked for some teams, but most of the time that doesn't work out. Usually it's, you know, it's about fit. The thing about stars is, you know, stars need the ball. And when you've got a team that already has some of those players that handle that ball, I said sometimes that just doesn't fit. I mean, look what's going on with Bradley Beal right now. Like I said, somebody posted it the other day that, you know, Bradley Beal went from the star of his team to now he's the third option. And nobody's talking about Bradley Beal. And so that's the kind of thing that happens. So you get too many stars, you get too many egos, and like I said, they all want the ball in their hand. They all want to score, and sometimes that's not beneficial to the team. When you get stars on teams, sometimes people have to make sacrifices, and there's a lot of egos in the NBA. So sometimes that just doesn't work out right. So I don't know. I'd like to see us make some type of trade, but not necessarily for a superstar, but like for a good role player. But I don't want to get rid of those good role players that we already have. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Tobias Harris, big fan of Beasley, big fan of Hardaway. So I don't want to see us lose those guys. And don't get me wrong, I like Isaiah Stewart a lot too. He plays with toughness, and to me, he's that embodiment of what Detroit basketball, Detroit sports, the grit, the toughness, the not backing away, does little things. To me, he encompasses all those things. So why would we want to get rid of him as well? Unless it's for a big upgrade. But like I said, the young talent on there, I mean, some of the commentators are starting to talk about it. You start hearing the Charles Barkleys and the Kendrick Perkins, and them say, that Detroit's a fun team to watch. And I agree. Like I said, I've watched most of their games this year. They're fun to watch. Even when they go down by 10, 15, I think 18 points the other night, they're finding ways to get back in the game. Finding ways to get back. I watched the Warriors game the other night, and they got down by quite a bit, and by the end of it, they still lost, but they lost by 3. So they fight, they scratch, they do all those things that Detroit sports are known for, and so fun to watch. Like I said, it's a good time to be a sports fan in Michigan. I don't really follow hockey too much. I'm not a big hockey fan. But the Red Wings are doing all right, too, from everything that I've been told, too. So, Michigan State basketball, doing all right, too. So, yeah, like I said, Michigan sports is booming right now. It's a good time to be a fan. I mean, I've been in those eras where Lions were the worst team in the NFL. Pistons were the worst team in the NBA. Red Wings were the worst team in hockey. Tigers were the worst team in baseball. So, those type of times aren't fun. So, it's good when all of a sudden everybody's good. Everybody's competing. Everybody's making runs for playoffs. And even if they're not the best team, just to compete, that's fun. That's fun to watch. And I get to go to a Pistons game here coming up as well. I know I mentioned earlier that we're doing that Michigan basketball game, but there's this package, a Michigan Detroit Pistons package, where great deal, $55 a person. Michigan ticket to the Washington game, Pistons ticket to the Oklahoma City Thunder game, and a match sweatshirt that combines the two. $55 a piece. Don't know how great the seats are, but you can't beat that type of energy. So the wife hooked that up and going to that. God, I kind of feel now, like I said, even though I'm not a big hockey fan, I kind of feel like I need to go to a Red Wings game now too. Because, yeah, this season I've gone to a Tigers game, gone to a Michigan Wolverines game, went to the Lions last week, going to a Michigan Wolverines basketball game tomorrow, and we've got the Pistons game coming up, I think, in early March. So, might have to go ahead and get a Red Wings ticket too. Just go ahead and see all those Michigan teams coming up. So, not a big hockey fan, but I've been to hockey games before. They're fun to go to. So, there's just something fun about going to a sporting event anyway. So, yeah, that's what we'll do. But, yeah, that's really all I wanted to kind of focus on today was how great it is to be a Michigan fan right now. Like I said, big weekend for sports. I got these playoff games starting today, wild card weekend. The college football playoffs, the championship scheduled next week. NBA's going, college basketball's going. My girls' basketball season's right in the midst of everything. We're doing well. 5-3. One of my freshman girls, old Gabby, got athlete of the week in Jackson County. So things are going well. Things are going good. So I guess short episode this week with no Jeff, but hopefully he'll be back next week. Like I said, keep tuning in, keep sharing, keep liking. Available on all platforms. But until next weekend.